Hello, good evening.
Good evening.
Check out the view. So nice, isn't it?
We love this view. And the
Really
lighting.
love it. This is actually an impromptu video.
It is.
Sally has no idea what we're talking about.
I have no idea. Mum just said, I think we should do a video. And
Yeah.
I was like, okay.
So we are having a conversation, life, business, relationships, all of it.
Yes. Really important things.
I was like, we should do a podcast on it, really, but this can act as a mini podcast.
Yeah.
But I think the conversation was big, as in the direction it was going, the content, and some challenging parts to the conversation as well.
Yeah.
And I think it's so important. Like, I'm really lucky to have Sally, who challenges me a lot in the background, because it's very easy to get settled. It's very easy to kind of, think that you're doing okay, whereas Sally just like pushes the entity massively in the background.
Well, I think it's interesting because I definitely used to be someone who wanted to feel settled and made, grand attempts to make sure that there was some roots and to feel like settled. But I think it's bigger than growing a business. I think when you are mission driven and you have a bigger purpose and vision for what you want to create for your life, you always realize just how far away you are all the time. Like, even though you have some massive accomplishments and you do achieve certain goals, you're never going to achieve your biggest vision, because there's always going to be something new and exciting to strive for. And I think that that's really important to have. I think in a relationship, and I think even just as individuals, I think it's incredibly important. I think people settle too quickly and then they forget about the big vision. And so but sometimes I think when you have achieved some things, you can feel yourself stop growing. You can feel it. It's an energy. And so I think I like to, and you feel it too, it's not like it's just me, but it's like I like to bring that to our attention, because it's really about how big can you be? How big can you go? How much can you live into your potential? Because when you start to settle and when you start to get like comfortable, is really when you're just like, my hair is doing crazy things, but like is when you just, it's
boring, isn't it?
How do you explain it? It's like, yeah, it is. It becomes mundane. It becomes your new normal, which is fantastic because you've had to grow to a certain level to get there. But I think people feel I think they are so scared they've worked so hard to get to that level or that goal, that they're so scared to put themselves into a position where they could go back to zero again, where they could lose it all again, and they sacrifice all that they were meant to be and that next level, because there always is a next level, and be further and deeper into the person that they truly want to be and to become, to settle.
Because I think that was where the conversation was going. It was kind of, I think you said something along the lines of like, you look up to me for the leadership at the front, then when you're in this space of kind of settling, so I definitely do that, as in I'll go and achieve something and then I'll settle on that for a little while, and that's just that's just how I do it. But you need someone in the background, especially myself, who is then lets that settle for a while, but then is like, what else? Let's go. What else do we need to do? What else do we need to be? What else can we put forward? Because I think, and I don't want to make this about backgrounds or anything like that, but I was probably early 20s, mid 20s, and I overachieved on what I ever was probably expected of myself, at least. So it's very easy for me to kind of look at things now and go, well, I overachieved anyway, and then just settle into that and carry on doing the mundane every single day. But that's not what it's about, is it?
Well, no. No, I think there's levels to everything, and I think it's just always I think this is the importance of like setting bigger goals, because you have to be different. People set these big goals and then they don't change. And it's like, I remember early on, like when I was a teenager, people, the guys would be like, oh, you've changed, with when they get into a relationship with a woman. And like, that was seen as like a really bad thing, and it depends, obviously, like it just means that they don't have their bros anymore. But like, and there's a lot to that. But I believe like we've changed so much in the, how many years are we together?
Seven or something like 7.5.
Yeah, I think going on 8, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
We've changed so much even from the beginning, and that's not from anything other than we have a goal. Who do we need? With the discussion is who do we need to be in order to achieve that goal? Because people set goals and then they don't. Yeah, as I said, don't change. And then they wonder why they don't get the goal. And then they get disheartened, and then they make it a failure, and then the failure becomes part of their identity, and then they're so terrified of going out there and putting themselves out there again. And it is scary. Like, nothing's guaranteed. Like, it's all a risk. But I just believe that, like, I think it's even a quote or a saying. I think the biggest risk is not changing and not achieving all that you were meant to be, and saying that you want the things, saying that you want to go and live over here and live this life, and saying you want all the things, but the actions don't speak. And it's so I've been in that place, and I sometimes find myself in that place again throughout this journey, and it's a miserable place, because you don't feel like you've got any control. Like, you say you want these things, but then you're not backing it up with the person that you need to be in the action to achieve that, and so you're stuck in this kind of limbo. But that doesn't change until you have that conversation with yourself around how committed are you to achieving the things that you say that you're going to do, because it requires you as an individual and as an entity to change.
Yeah. And I think what you were saying before about going back to zero and that was because I've been in those situations a number of times with the two of us, and that was something that I said I would never go back to. So earning like a decent amount of cash and then going back to zero, doing it again. So that's a pattern that I think as an entrepreneur you try and move away from, because it's painful. Like certain people's minimums are more, certain people's are less. Mine was zero, unfortunately. So a lot of the time was when we would go back to zero, it was painful. So I then started to try and move away from that, and we have done in a really nice way. However, I think what's really important is what Sally's saying there. It's like, you've still got to go again. Just because you've moved past that point now, it's so easy to be like, well, I don't want to go there again, so I'm going to hold myself in this pattern for the rest of my life and stay in a certain point. And it's like, no, it's like, you do have to commit. Like, you've got to recommit to yourself. You've got to recommit to the entity if you're in a relationship, especially if you're a couple in business or even not. Like, you've got to recommit to the relationship. You got to recommit to your future. Like, we constantly talk about the whiteboard that we put together 7-8 years ago. We've accomplished so much on that just by having it there and committing to it. But again, you got to recommit to I would say, you got to recommit to who you are now. Something Sally's talking a lot about now is like telling the truth. You got to tell the truth to yourself and tell the truth to, I think you said, tell the truth and it will set you free.
Well, it really does. Like, I think it's just about first being honest with how you want your life to look. I think like a lot of people don't give themselves the space to really get clear with what they truly desire and what they really want. So then they pretend, like they shove that to the side and I've done this, so I know. They shove that to the side, and then they make it really practical and very logical. But there's no fun in that.
Yeah.
Like, I've done it both ways, and there's just like, I've done the logic. You just chip away a little bit every time, and it's just like there's so little change that you're, people talk about this quantum leaping, and then that seems so terrifying, and people get sucked into this illusion that if they chip away, they'll eventually get there. And that's the biggest risk of all, because I would say there is a big portion of people that have thought that way and have gotten to like 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, and now look back regretting those decisions.
They played it too safe for too long.
Totally.
It's like there's nothing wrong with consistency, but I would argue like consistency is what you do in between. I think you should be quantum leaping, consistently quantum leaping, rather than consistently just chipping away at the I think, certain things like, for example, weight loss and gym and training, like you're going through this at the minute. I think, it takes time and, consistency does. But I think, and then people say, oh, it's the same in business, it's the same elsewhere. And I agree, but I also completely disagree as well. I think in business and life and fun and how amazing your life gets to be, I don't think it's the same as the gym in that respect.
Yeah.
I think it's the same. I think with that you get to be massively creative, because I think with the physical realm, as in like the physical body, there's certain laws at play. Whereas I think in the energetic world and attraction points, I think there's different laws, there's still laws, but you can play with them. You can have fun with them, and they come in all sorts of different ways. So I think, not getting caught up on the consistency route, and instead start looking at some things that inspire you to want to be more than you are today. Because it's like, we see this in business. This is where the conversation started today. Like, people kind of chip away and do the small things, and it's like, well, why not set a big opportunity, one which gives you the butterflies, makes you excited, makes you scared, all at the same time. Why not do that one? And then tomorrow wake up as that person, act as they do the things they do, and watch how quickly you grow. You might not achieve the goal in the same way you thought you were going to, but watch how quickly you feel differently. Watch how quickly you feel like you're separating yourself from the old version of you. Again, people are very scared of being somebody new. They're very scared of leaving that old identity behind, because the old identity was now safe. And this is the challenge. Like, if you stay at a new identity but it becomes monotonous and boring, you will start to default back to what was once your default. You will go back there. You'll go back to safety. You'll go, and you might not see it. This is what we see this a lot in coaching. People don't see themselves regressing. Unfortunately, it does happen. And that comes from not setting the bar high enough, not setting the intentions high enough, not having, I'm very grateful, as I said, not having Sally in the background.
I was gonna say, like, people don't have like that unity at home.
Create that. That's the most important thing.
That's the conversation you've got to have, because your happiness is at stake. Like, it's not even just like kind of fluffy words like living your potential. Yes, you're going to make some money. Yes, you're going to make some bold moves, but it's just like your happiness is at the end of it. So it's like, if you're not like shifting and growing like year on year, if you don't look back at your photos from like a year ago where you've just like, you see the shift and see the change. Like, I look back at myself like a year ago and I'm like, who is that? Like, I just don't even really recognize that woman. And I think this is really important, because you gotta acknowledge like what it is that you actually want, not logically can achieve if I chip away, but but like, what in a limitless world, because we live in a limitless world, do you ultimately want? And having that conversation with your partner as well, if you're in a relationship, because those are the ones that are really important, and it means that you guys are both accountable to achieving that as well. And I think that that's really powerful, and I think that that creates a really deep connection between the two of you as well.
For sure.
You're like, no.
No, it definitely does, and it's not an easy conversation either. I think this is the big part to it, because you know, we both sat there tonight and we both again told the truth to each other, and we do this as much as possible. Like, it's not an every week thing, because it's, you know, there's often
no, it doesn't need to be like every week, but there's sometimes where you've got to pull each other up, and you've got to be willing to have the hard conversations, and that can be really uncomfortable, because you have to look at your own BS. Like, as in, not the other person's BS, like, hey, you're not doing this, this, and this. It's your BS.
Yeah.
Because you're
it's
part
a
of
mirror.
it as well.
It's a mirror.
And it's a mirror. So it's like, you've got to be willing to have those conversations, and most people aren't. And that's why they don't get ahead.
Yeah.
But they don't have those hard conversations with themselves. They're not truthful with themselves around what they really want, because they are fearful, right?
Yeah.
And then if they're hiding the truth from themselves, they're going to hide the truth from their partner, and it's like, well, how are you going to flourish? How are you going to grow? How are you going to build a connection together if you can't be honest with one another and you can't be honest with yourself? So it's like, it's actually bigger than business. I talk about this like in terms of purpose and your business, and being truthful with the marketplace and sharing your truth. But if you can't be honest with yourself in your own personal life, then how can you do that in your business? How can you do that in your relationship? And how can you achieve all the things that you say that you want if you can't get honest with yourself? Yeah.
And I think, again, it's going back to my final point here is like, it's so easy when you've had some success not to look at this. Like, it's really easy now to be sat on the balcony here in Marbella having nice chats, like we've been having great. Yeah, it's a bit cold now. It's gone a bit cold, but like, it's very easy to be here and relax and sit in, you know, this 3-story penthouse with a swimming pool on the roof. Like, it's amazing. This was a dream. This was on the whiteboard. The opportunity to do this was on the whiteboard. The life we've created was on the whiteboard. We've done we have made the moves to be here. Like, every step of the way we have made those moves. It's very easy to sit here and be like, kind of chilled and not really focused on mission, and you just get caught up in an energy that isn't serving you. So no matter where you're at right now, because I know people on here are, you know, some people are doing really well already, it's like, so what? Like, what's
in
next
comparison
for you
to where you
yeah
really want to be?
Like, there's a version of you genuinely right now who's kind of like, come on, the money you're making is ridiculous, the lifestyle you're living is ridiculous, the connection you have to your partner is ridiculous, like your health is ridiculous, like all these things, they're smirking because they know that you could be so much more, and the only opportunity to be that other person is to start telling some truth. That's all Sally, by the way. You know, she's often like, you've got to tell the truth to yourself. But
it's also great as well, because I feel confident to be able to say that to you as well. Because I think it works both ways, right? And you to me. And I think in a relationship, I think also you have to hold space, because if the other person is not is not willing to have that conversation, that makes it very difficult.
For sure. And it does go in peaks and cycles. Sometimes it's me driving the conversation, sometimes it's Sally. It doesn't matter, but I would say, you know, Sally would agree, like, I drive a lot of the conversations, but I also need that push, because I also get complacent with the conversations, and they can very easily you know, carry on as the same.
I think this is in any partnership, even in a business partnership. It's like, you both not you both can't be like visionaries leading from the front. There's like there's the visionary, and then there's the person who's like kind of, I think they call it the how guy.
Yeah.
So who kind of pulls it all together. So it's like there's definitely roles. There's absolutely roles.
100%.
So know your role. I think
your role as well.
That's an important thing.
Yeah. My arm is getting pins and needles.
I can see you
so I'm
like
shaking away.
Shivering as well.
But yeah, anyone who's watched the full 20 minutes, thanks for staying the 20 minutes.
I reckon we put this up as a podcast.
Why the hell not?
Yeah. Episode 6?
7.
Okay.
7. But I hope you enjoyed it. There's a lot. Again, this came from a conversation right here. So thought it was very valuable.
Yeah.
Appreciate you watching in. Any questions, any comments, send through as always.
Thanks, guys.
Bye-bye.